On April 1, 2026, a cruise ship carrying over 150 people departed from Ushuaia, Argentina. This was supposed to be a luxury vacation, exploring Antarctica and the remote islands of the South Atlantic. 5 days into the journey, a 70-year-old Dutch passenger went to the ship's doctor with a sudden fever and breathing issues. His condition deteriorated so rapidly that he died on board shortly after. When the ship docked at St. Helena, his wife disembarked with his body to fly home, but as she waited at the airport, she collapsed and died. Back on the ship, other passengers were simultaneously falling fatally ill. What began as a high-end tourist expedition had transformed into a floating quarantine zone, trapping passengers at sea with an invisible, unidentified killer. The vessel quickly became a pariah. Multiple international ports flatly refused to let it dock, fearing the contagion tearing through the passenger decks. This chart compares the mortality rate of known viral pathogens. When health organizations identified the culprit as Hantavirus, they were looking at a virus with no known cure and a 50% death rate. With half the infected dying and 0 vaccines available, global panic set in. Media outlets began questioning if this stranded ship was the origin point of a global pandemic. This pathogen is not a new discovery. Scientists first documented it during the 1950s Korean War, when over 3,000 U.S. soldiers suddenly suffered massive internal bleeding and kidney failure. It took nearly 30 years to trace those deaths back to local rodents living near the Hantan River, which gave the virus its name. Then came the 1993 American outbreak in the Southwest. Young, healthy members of the Navajo tribe died in a matter of weeks as fluid rapidly filled their lungs. Despite a documented history across the globe, scientists were continually unable to explain why these deadly outbreaks seemed to explode out of nowhere. During that 1993 outbreak, Navajo tribal elders provided the context scientists had been searching for. Their oral history documented a consistent, undeniable link between massive rainfall and the sudden emergence of this deadly disease. This map shows how severe El Niño weather patterns cause abnormal, heavy rainfall across specific geographic regions. This influx of water causes a massive gloom in local vegetation, specifically a bumper crop of pinyon pine nuts. Those nuts are the primary food supply for local mice. The rodent population explodes in response, which increases the probability of human contact. These outbreaks are rarely random biological accidents. They are the predictable end result of an environmental chain reaction. Historically, hantavirus followed one strict rule. It was an animal-to-human disease. You could catch it from a mouse, but you could not pass it to another person. This transmission flowchart shows the exception. The Andes strain, discovered in Argentina, carries a mutation that allows the virus to jump directly from person to person. This brings us back to the cruise ship. Just days prior to boarding, the first victims had taken a bird-watching tour through a rat-infested landfill in Argentina. The ghost ship scenario was a perfect storm. The exact victims carrying the only human transmissible strain of the virus were placed into a sealed, close-quarters environment. So, does the Andes strain possess the capability to trigger a global lockdown? The virological data suggests it does not. First, the virus is not airborne like flu or COVID. To spread it to another person, you need prolonged, intimate physical contact or exposure to bodily fluids. This comparison reveals the second barrier. While COVID-19 has a 14-day contagious window, a person infected with hantavirus is typically only contagious for about a single day. A pathogen that burns out this quickly and requires such specific contact lacks the biological math necessary to spread across the globe. The real threat remains localized outbreaks, especially as upcoming El Niño patterns threaten to trigger fresh rodent booms. Prevention starts by physically separating yourself from the carriers. Seal any structural gaps in your housing to keep rodents out, and rigorously secure your food waste. If you enter a dusty, abandoned space where rodent droppings might accumulate, wear an N95 respirator and gloves before cleaning. While science has yet to produce a vaccine for this pathogen, our understanding of its mechanics proves that our greatest weapons are hygiene, ecological awareness, and rational